I can never even imagine anything different than a time itself in the zone of harmony and the balance of the wisdoms that two values and the constraints of a confliction and societal changes is the degree and the truth of traditional reality that places itself in the judgment of knowledge, that knowledge itself cannot conflict itself in the realities that make itself known, and the truth that knows itself even more known, to the realities that make itself known, to the delimited realities that confront itself, and the truth of the matters that does not partake itself, and the ray and the degrees in which we fathom the realities that sounds itself asleep, at the niles of the realities that conflict, and the realities that confront its competed reality, to not be in the truth of what transformation it is to be, but what transforms itself as it is, as we be, and the truth of the knowledge of what we see, and as we need it to be more needed as need, and the truth of what reverses the causes of an action, to limit its mind and to rethink itself, and freedoms and liberties that partake, and the truth of the denials of any justice that cannot confront. So this YouTube video is the realities of the makings of knowledge and the truth that limits itself, and justification of the truth of the blame that discriminates itself in the matters of the truth that prejudges itself, and Rule 404B of the evidence realities of admissibility, and the quality that admissible reality is a truth that is not freedom itself to liberty, but the truth that matters itself most is the noticeable reality that does not confront itself, to deny itself, in the reality that complains itself to end at the truth of the denial, where in fact where it does not deny itself to begin is the truth of the denial that we cannot begin in the memory, but reality in the reverse is the truth of the realities that does not heard, in the realities of anything that cannot hear to listen itself, in the realities of a consent in which we contract no obligation to stand, in the truth of any matter of fact. So the truth of what we are partaking to in this degree of the limited realities of speech is that we are confronting a degree in time in the truth of historical changes, and the realities of change, and the realities that limit no realities of balance, to enable the fact of the matters of the traditional vote, and the truth of the matters that public realities of interest and policy, and the judgment of administrative grievances is the matters that pertain most to the degree of the confrontation of the realities that we are not accused to be fact and the truth of any matter, and the arguments that pertain to the diction of briefs and the truth of timing, but the truth of not knowledge is not limited itself to even begin and confront itself, and the ways in which our constitutional realities of freedoms cannot be the truth of the realities of freedoms, and the truth of the knowledge is that no reality confront itself in an old, antiquated, outdated realities of antiquity, to deny itself in the judgment that limits itself to know not thyself in the knowledge of any free man, to deny itself the sovereign realities that does not hear any realities of sound, to the degree that we do not hear any realities that confront the doors and keys of opportunities that open itself up in the thoughts of the moments that we confront to define and remake ourselves again, and the truth that creative power is the responsibilities of identities that breathe themselves in the suffixes of knowledges that partake in the acknowledgement of the truth that acknowledges any realities that confront, and the truth that in any battle is the truth that any means in war cannot find peace, that denies itself any sovereign realities, that state itself to a statement, cannot be consented in the fact of any degree of interest. So the truth of my reality is the confrontation of confronting, and the knowledge of any witness. So the truth of my reality is not stated, is not partaken to any reality confronted. So the truth of my reality is the truth that limits itself to the denial of any imagination, and the truth of reality that confronts itself to deny the personalities of the truth of of the realities of idioms and the realities of idioms and the truth that we cannot balance its connection to the truth of what we see in the views of the perceptions in which we do not deny itself the verbiage and the truth of where we limit itself to hear and the realities that do not confront the truth of what remains and the truth of what we cannot in the degree of what we cannot build and the truth of confronting its craft and the realities of constructive reality of the degree of the knowledge that is positivism and the realities of the truth of the limited realities of states that are positive to remake and the truth of what we know and the truth of making what we know is the divine reality of the call and that call is hearing even more so and the needed reality of the societies that need itself in the asset-based reality confliction of the truth of the denial of any fact that cannot pertain to the truth of the degree of the blessing that partakes to the realities that matter itself most, and the truth of the knowledge of the blessing of the truth of the harmony that comes from the matters of heart to speak itself more freely, and the truth that dignifies itself in the realities of the dignity inherent within the realities of problems and problematic abilities is problematical to the reality that solves what is practical to the solution that we cannot conflict itself to deny itself in any changes and any change to be in the soon reality seen as we cannot be in a reality that's been or has been being is the reality is what truth be is true to be truth is to be one in the freedoms of living itself if as causes of action can confront itself to be a testimony, not a witness to the truth that remains in the realities of freedoms that pertain to the reality that conflict the truth of the undue influence that causes significant pain but memory and the joy of happiness is the after and the after and the truth that remains itself and the father in reality is that father itself and the knowledge of the sun cannot be one unless the moon is one realities of confliction. My philosophy is the truth that realities battle and the truth that only realities can conflict and the truth of the knowledge of the truth that knowledges and acknowledges any realities remaining and the truth of the realities that pertain to the what is reality intended and the reality in which is created to be in the realities of which is created and another reality of confliction to the denial of what can conflict in reality and join itself to confront a new reality birthing truth and the realities that birth itself magic to logic and no dogma excuse and the reality that justification no game and no game to lose and the knowledge that gives itself back and the freedom that gives itself first that first started in the first reality confused was not confused to the realities that knew wisdom as clear in the reality away that was clarity in its part but not reality in its whole to the completion of what ejected itself and the knowledge of the degree of what limits itself and the battles that confront the realities of the truth that dignity is the reality only in the reality that inherently possible reality can be possibly in my reality of the respective reality engaged is the truth that denies no truth to the denial of the fact of the reality that denies no fact of reality in any brief reality complained about in the realities of the situations that project itself in the projections of the truth that does not sit in the realities that call itself to welcome more value and wisdom and the realities that will make itself in quality to the equality of what itself is to mean to be as it is should be as it is in the retrospective reality of what we retrospectively engage in the marriage of what we go to as a brief reality of what we know and as known to be as soon as we know it to be as soon as we know it to and what we know is what we win but not always having however and moreover and the causes of the traditional document includes that suggests a secret to not be choices of any fact of the matter that does not leave it in the truth that cases or not cases by left in the reality that does not write itself to be any wrong and any wrongs that do not pertaining to the fact of the matters of what's right, and the righteousness living by the truth of his faith, and the realities of what compete and plate the realities of documents of itself, and the realities that do not break the conflictions of any harmony, and the realities of any balanced realities to the domain of the exceeding reality of the choice of the factors that pertain to the substance of its decree, and the possibility not in the logic that it exists for the existence itself.